my wife and I, Megan, bought this property just under 2 years ago. We only moved here in July, and it's quite a degraded, well, my view is it's quite a degraded piece of farmland. When we came here, it was predominantly sheep. Had been, I suspect, running sheep for maybe 100, 150 years on a set stock type basis. If you know what set stocking is, means that you're just leaving animals in a paddock and they stay there for however long, months, years, whatever. They just go around, selectively graze whatever they want. What we found when I came here was the sheep were constantly sick. They were either getting worms, getting flies, always something. Although I knew nothing about sheep, I knew enough to know that those sheep did not need to be getting fed chemicals every couple of weeks to keep them alive. And something was just not right if that's what you had to do. So when I started, I got a bit more time, because I probably should go back to the start, when we used to be in Bioloong at Tarwyn Park, and we sold the property down there and we moved up to this property. We ran cattle down there and some horses, but never sheep. Oh, well, small mob of killers, that's all. So moving to here and running sheep was a whole new ball game for me. But what I found is what I said, was that the sheep were getting sick. In Bioloong we ran cattle all the time, and although cattle are different, we never had ill health in those animals. What was the difference? The difference was the diversity in plants that we had on that property compared to what was here when I came. It is slowly changing. There's a lot more diversity here now than what there was 2 years ago. I want to ask you a question. When you walk down here, you walk down that track, there was a gully to your right, a flow path. Is there anything you noticed about there? Was there anything you noticed in that flow path as you walked down? Okay, there could have been water. Were there any steel posts with a bit of pink tape hanging off of them? Does anyone want to hesitate a guess as to why those steel posts were there? What they were indicating? No, well, possibly, but no. Well, the whole area is a flow path, but something specifically about that flow path. Okay, you don't need to guess anymore, it's okay, I'll tell you. It's the changes in the landscape. We call them steps. And you think, oh, well, why is that important? Because it's critical. It's critical to understand that these steps were in this Australian landscape, and that's how it functioned. We see a landscape like we might look at the side of that hill over there, and we look at it as a slope that goes like that. Where in actual fact, when you understand what you're looking for, you can see that it goes like this. There's all these little steps in there. Some of them have been lost. Obviously you wouldn't be ploughing that country, but on more open country where it's been farmed, those steps have been lost. Why are those steps important? Because it's those steps that control the hydrology, the movement of water in the soil, in and over the soil. And so what I wanted to point out in that gully, or in that flow path, was that these steps are still there, albeit they don't function anymore. If you have another look as you go back up, everywhere where I've put a marker, bar the very top one, everyone you can see, the landscape flattens out, then it goes up, then it flattens out, then it goes up, flattens out. And what you'll see is that at one point, there's an incision through the step part. Geez, everything's flying off here. Better leave them off. I'll lose every magnet and then I will be in trouble. We'll be in trouble now. So all of these steps get lost in one way, or have been lost in one way or another. Either lost because we've cut through them with a plough, or cut through them with a machine to drain the water away, or our livestock have diminished the plant life that's there, and the next time there was a flow came through, what we call a head wall cut, made its way back up through that step, and that's what's happened over here. So those steps, once upon a time, when the water flowed down, it pooled at the step, slowed, stopped, dropped its sediment, dropped its nutrients, and then made its way down. And it kept doing this, so the water moved down, it'd speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. The whole time it's being de-energised by the vast array of plants that are growing on that step itself. That's why it's critical, because today what we see happening is every time it rains, like last night, 50 mils of rain in a very short period of time, and the water just went gone. This landscape here, you'd think you'd see a heck of a lot of water running off it, wouldn't you? No plants there. There's hardly any water even moved off of that site, that 50 mils of rain. So what was the difference? Does anyone tell me what the difference might be?
Could have something to do with the deep ripping.
Possibly. Possibly. There wasn't much deep ripping up there. Most of it's, because if you look at these photos, these were the photos showing that site prior. And anyone who's up listening to Gilbert before, that's Gilbert standing in there. So there were multiples of those rills all the way down this landscape. So we had to deal with those first. So the infiltration is relatively great into there anyhow, but it can only take so much, because without structure, the water moves through the profile and the soil disappears underneath. So the water moves through, carries the soil away underneath, and it still runs away. No, the major difference here is one, the contour lines that have been put, there's two there so far, and all the mulch that's been laid above. So that mulch is able to soak up the water and dissipate the energy. So as the water starts to move down the slope, it's when it gains energy that it's able to start carrying away soil. And what happens is that as it carries away small amounts of soil, it only makes little runs like that, but every time it carries it away, the water now gets restricted to that area. And it runs faster, and it cuts deeper, and it gets restricted to more. And so you're getting more and more water moving fast through these little areas. Those little areas soon become big. And that's what we see today, is our creeks and our rivers everywhere. So, unless we can understand that these steps exist and how we go about reinstating those steps, we've got no chance of making this system work the way it once did. We can never restore it back to what it was, but we can make it function like it once did. Did you have a question?
The steps prior to the changes you're talking about, going back a couple of hundred years, was that a naturally occurring feature? Do you have a view on how they arose in the first place?
Look, this is an erosive country.
Yep.
Erosion is something that is normal. We can see it. I mean, where we are here today, there was probably 500 metres to a kilometre more material above our heads. Hard to believe. That eroded away. So yes, it is an erosive system, but it's the speed at which it happens. So erosion, in the absence of plants, happens very fast. So there were periods of time in the history of Australia where there were no plants. So ice ages where plants were lost, maybe extended dry periods, plants were lost. There was always a lot of erosion after that point. But the natural progression is these steps start forming. And you ask yourself, well, how do they form? And what you see is wherever you get two bodies or three bodies of water meeting at different directions, it causes a pooling of water. So it causes the energy to dissipate. So any sediment that's being carried in that water now dissipates and forms there. That's what forms those steps. The next thing that happens is that the plants start to colonise that area, because now it's got better fertility and more water. And from then on, the rest is history. The plants maintain the system. So, back to your question, this happened, what we're seeing today happened in only the last couple of hundred years since white settlement. We sped the process up because we didn't understand that these steps are these sensitive areas. These are the areas that hold this landscape together. And by not understanding that, we grazed or ploughed or whatever we did, everything as one. And those steps, if you go out onto the larger systems, those steps were the last areas that grew anything edible in a dry time. And so our stock would always hammer those areas in the dry times because we didn't understand that those spots were sensitive. So what happened? What always follows a dry? A wet. So now we've got an area that should be wet, should have plants in it, it's now denuded, and now we've got water coming. I think we can work out the rest. So in answer to your question, most of this damage has been done in our time, in a short window of time. But it's certainly happened like that over a long period of time, but not at the rate that it's happening now. So you ask, well, why would you put these contours up there? Can anyone take a guess after our conversation? Why would we put a contour up there? But what was that?
To mimic the steps.
To mimic the steps, exactly. So when I come into this landscape, this area here, you've seen pictures of what it was like. So it's very hard to pick where the steps were in that particular point. But in this flow path over here, you could still find the steps. Can anyone see those posts with the pink ribbon on them? At each one of those is a step. So if you imagine how those steps form, I just explained how the water slows and pools and creates the sediment behind, and that step forms from there. Well, the next thing that happens, and this doesn't happen overnight, this takes time. But each time there's another flow, more plants grow, and because they grow there, they start pushing the water sideways. So then the water starts building this step sideways, and it keeps building it sideways, and sideways and sideways and sideways. And so these contours are an extension of the only step that we have left there today. Prior to us coming here, there would have been animals, birds, doing that job for us. But we came in, we introduced our livestock, which excluded those animals and stopped them doing that job. But what we didn't understand is the role that they played. So their role was harvesting, camping, pooing, whatever, dying. Generally any animal that has a predator is going to go up to the top of the hill, or at least a good way up the hill, because that way they can see when they're about to get eaten. So they go up there, and if they go up there and they're sick, that's where they die. The nutrients are returned back up to there. And you think that's insignificant, but spread that out over thousands of years. And it now does not become insignificant at all. So you've got this constant cycling of nutrients. We come in, what happens?
All turns to shit.
It all turns to shit, and then if we don't do a good enough job, the shit goes out. So then we lose. So our nutrients go in one direction and no return. Only because we didn't understand that that's not the way the system works. So it's beholden upon us as land managers to work out how can we farm but carry out that same process. Can we do it? Yeah, we can. We don't have to manually harvest everything and cart it to the top of the hill, but we can utilise our animals and use those animals, graze them down there, push them up to the top, or create an environment where they might want to go halfway up the hill or up the top of the hill during the day, whether it be water or shade or whatever, just so that they can go up there for a certain period of time and do their business and return their fertility back.
So apart from the hemp experiment, what's your intention over time? You're bringing cattle, sheep back, or?
Yeah, we've got a few cattle on at the moment, but I chose, while I was doing some of this rehabilitation, it was easier for me not to be running the livestock. Once I got rid of the sheep, I decided, well, just for my own sake, I'm going to go livestock free for about 12 months or thereabouts, and then, yeah, we'll see what happens. So I won't be bringing sheep back simply because I know that the environment's still not right for them. So I'll more than likely introduce cattle into the system, start to create change, and then maybe we'll bring the sheep back. What I want to get towards, and I'm not sure when I'm going to get there, is introducing a lot more livestock than just those two.
Do you anticipate them interfering with those contours at all?
Definitely. In the early stages, they definitely will. Yep. Which is why I chose not to have them. It was easier than having to try and fence this area out in that period of time. Now, not everybody's going to have the luxury of being able to do that. Most people are still going to have to run their farm and earn $1. So in that instance, you go, all right, I'm only going to work on that bit, and I'm just going to fence it out and just control or manage how the livestock go into that area. So they can go in, short time, come out, no damage. Rather than having access to a large paddock, and they might spend a good portion of their time up there and make it, do some damage to it. So it's for everybody to make a choice as to how they're going to operate. Most people, oh, sorry, I never finish.
I hope it's not too personal, but are you rehabilitating because it makes financial sense in the long term, or just for the sake of rehabilitating?
No, because it makes financial sense. At the moment, what you've got, this property is losing. So it's only going to last for so long before it's got nothing left to give. So unless this takes place, there isn't going to be a place to earn productivity from in the future. So, it's just about, you choose what you can afford to do, and yet the rest of it you just have to wait. You just chip away and do little bits at a time. But no, definitely, it's all about productivity. It's about how can we make this system work better. And if we can stop the losses, then that's a good start. So introducing other forms of livestock, different forms other than just our four-legged friends, things like chickens. Because if you look at, the way I look at a landscape, I look at the fertility. How fertile is that piece of land? If it's not fertile, why? Is it because it lacks the hydration, therefore it can't grow the plants that you require? Does it lack the plants because the grazing's been such that you've simplified your system, so you're not growing a diverse species of plants? Or has it just been mined, the fertility? Whether it's been mined by the way it's been farmed, or it's been lost down through the profile of the soil as leaching. Who knows? But if the fertility is low, you have to look at how do I build the fertility as cheaply as possible. Does anyone have any ideas how you do that? Other than going into the shop and buying a bag of super? With animals? Plants? Definitely. How do you make money out of the plants if the fertility is low? But generally the plants that are going to build fertility are probably not the ones that you're going to earn money from with your livestock. Eggs, 100%. So chickens are a primary source. They're a primary fertility animal. Because you are introducing a feed source to feed the chickens, you are by default adding fertility to your place, because it's in the form of a grain or whatever it is. Now, whether you produce that food on your place or not, that's up to you. But if you took this same scenario here and you said, okay, I'm not growing hemp here, I'm going to grow a crop of oats or wheat or whatever you feed to your chickens, corn, whatever, and I'm going to harvest that and I'm going to feed the chickens up there. And those chickens are going to produce eggs. So those chickens are now producing an income for you while they're building the fertility of your farm. Does that work for you? So now it's just a matter of looking at how can you, if you're in a system that's degraded, how do you create an income and repair the land at the same time? That's how you do it. Well, that's how I believe you do it. But you should never simplify the system to one species of livestock. When I ran the property at Byalong, when I took over from my father, he ran horses, had lots of them, and they grazed pretty hard. And I switched from horses to cattle, still yet another single species of animals. But the change in the landscape was exponential. Do you know why? Just different forms of shit and a different grazing regime. And that's changed that place around magnificently. But was it going to be always like that? No. And I didn't know that. I had to learn that in time. What you find out is that when you change from one livestock to another, or some change, be it that you change from set stocking to rotational livestocking, you'll always see a change. The faster the change, the faster you're likely to plateau. And that's what I found, is that you see all these beautiful bounty of high fertility plants coming into the system, which your livestock do very well on. But if your fertility is quite high, it doesn't take long before that plateaus off. And there's only one way to go from a plateau, isn't there? And it's not up. And so that's why when you run multiple species of livestock, you avoid that happening. So you get the flow up, and it just keeps going up and up and up. Because you've got all these different livestock, they're all adding different components. They all rely on different plants, and each plant does a different job. So now you've got biodiversity on the ground, in the ground with the biology, and above the ground with the livestock that you're running. Now I think that's a very good system. That's something that's, well, who knows how long it'll be sustainable for. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I think that's a system that's sustainable for a long time.
Agriculture. I mean, is there any way to make it carbon neutral?
You mean loss of plants?
Methane, about 13%.
Etc.
Well, I would argue about the methane. I know they've done research on stock, but I don't know that they've researched stock in a rotational system with biodiverse planting. I think you'll find that that will change when you give the animals choice of what they eat.
You mean they eat stuff that means that they don't fart methane?
Sorry? Yes.
You mean they eat
Can I butt in there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so a lot of livestock are housed indoors, and you've got cut-carry feeding regimes. So, and primarily, particularly in the US, corn is the prime source. So you've got a single food source for these animals that are now living indoors 24/7, 365 days a year, totally divorced from their environment. So because of that total divorcement from their environment, you've got this exponential increase in methane, yes. If those animals were running on a diverse pasture, and this has actually been scientifically proven recently, that if the pasture is made up of the right style of plants, like what those animals are actually supposed to eat, whether it be ruminants or not, depending on what the animal is, if the pasture is composed of a diverse set of species of plants for that particular animal, the emissions are substantially reduced. So actually there's another paper just recently about feeding seaweed to cattle, believe it or not, and a huge reduction in methane emissions. So yeah, I think the key to this is getting livestock out of controlled barn style situations and back out in the pasture where they're supposed to be.
And with that test, I've also read that where they did the test with the seaweed. Why do you think that would be?
Trace
Why?
elements and stuff in the seaweed, you know, nutrients and the trace elements and nutrients that have gone out to sea from the erosion.
Great job, Dan. You're a hunt. Geez, you must have a good teacher. That's exactly right. That's what happens. So Dan said the reason the seaweed, it makes a difference to the cattle, is because the seaweed contains a lot more micronutrients and nutrients that have been lost from the landscape to the ocean. See, that's what we keep doing. We keep sending all of our nutrients to the ocean, but none of it comes back. If we start growing a diverse range of plants, we can't decide which ones our animals need, only they can decide that. That's if there's any surviving on your farm if you haven't sprayed them all out, that is. I'm not going to use the word. Does anyone know what the word is of those plants? Yeah, weeds, that's right.
Cucumber species.
Yeah.
Stuart, would you consider running kangaroo?
I hadn't considered running kangaroos. I suppose you could. People do. It's not something I'd considered, but
Biodiversity,
well, I actually already run by default at quite a few hundred here.
taking away the cattle, and
We know how to round them up,
Yeah. No, I hadn't considered that. If you wanted to, I don't see any reason why you can't. If you can turn those into an income source, they are natural. They are natural in this environment. They obviously do well on the feed, especially the stuff we supply for them. So, no hooves.
The Australian population is not willing to pay enough for kangaroo meat to make it economically viable.
We've
Yeah.
already talked about how we're not paying enough for our food, though. So,
Also, behavioural changes within our households, rather than waiting for economies to change, actually being the behavioural change.
That's right. If the Australian public demanded kangaroo meat, don't you worry.
Farmers would do it.
Would provide it in short order.
Yeah. So you look, in short, of course you can. They're an animal. They have been here longer than us, so they have proven not to destroy the environment. The thing about the hard-hoofed animals, I talked about the steps. Imagine you're looking at a stream and you see a step, and the step is only a little stream, so the step's vegetated. Where do you think, if you've got cattle or sheep, where do you think they will cross that stream? The flat bit where the water is the shallowest. That is the step. So that's the thing the hard-hoofed animal does to destroy this landscape, if we don't understand that that's what can happen. They walk across that step, the plants are lost, the step is gone, the system falls apart. It's as simple as that. So when you think about it, you go, oh, these bloody hard-hoofed animals, we shouldn't have them in the landscape because they're doing damage. No, that's not entirely true. There are certain areas of this Australian landscape that are very sensitive to those particular animals. If we understand that, the rest of the system we can run, the rest of the landscape we can run them on as long as we run them. And there's plenty of good information out there about rotationally grazing and how you can do that and how you can do it right. Plenty. And it's shown to be beneficial, not the reverse.
It entirely comes down to management.
It does. It does. It comes down to management. And the one thing that limits all of our abilities is what's stuck between our ears. And it's that causes all of the problems. We limit what we're prepared to do by allowing our brain to tell us that that is not right. A lot of things that go on in this landscape are completely the opposite. When we run our training course, we say to the people that come in, we say, leave all of your previous ideas at the front gate. Come in with a blank slate. Then you've got an opportunity to open your mind to look at how the landscape actually functions and decide for yourself whether you want to try and get yours to function the same way. Any other questions? I've got to wrap it up pretty quickly because I've
how
got
do
to
you
get going.
stand with burn-off?
Sorry?
Burn-off?
Burn off? What do
What do you think about, because this morning there was a group speaking about how they burn the land.
Yeah.
Do you ever use burning the land to
No.
regenerate it all?
No. There's no way you can burn something and end up with more. You can't burn something and end up with more fertility or anything. You've lost. So you've lost all of the carbon that plant had contained in it, straight up. We've already been talking about gases and the damage that we do. Why would you burn it? You need to think of some other way of dealing with that particular plant. Burning would be the last thing I would do. I can assure you that if I set fire to anything, my old man's boot would be so far up my butt, I would not know what to do. And look, I'd be the same if my son wanted to burn something.
I heard you earlier as we were arriving talking basically you didn't like the word weed, you just called them all plants.
No, I am happy with the word weed. Right. It's everybody else that has a problem with it. Because when you say weed, it conjures up in your brain all of these ideas of this horrible plant that you must kill. And then you see the ads on TV with this big chemical drum flexing its muscles, gotta kill that thing. Nature works to build ecosystems, and it will build them again.
Stuart, that example, serrated tussock, and the best way to kill that is to put compost on the soil, build the carbon levels. So
build the fertility.
So the more, and I've also heard the more fungal the soil, which is a more mature soil, the less plants from wherever will go, and you'll just keep getting a higher order plant. So it's just that building that landscape.
If you have a paddock full of, and let's use the word weed, right? You have a paddock full of weeds. You allow those weeds to grow for whatever time. You work out how you're going to manage it and what you're going to do. But you will find that within a short period of time, I'm saying short, 2 to 5 years, and I believe that's short, within a short period of time you will see a change in succession. That plant will disappear and another one will come in. Is it going to be a plant that you want? Maybe, maybe not. It really depends. It really depends on the situation. If the fertility is still degrading, then it probably won't be a plant that you want, or depending on how badly degraded it is. And the way I look at it is, if you want to look at a plant or look at a landscape and decide how degraded it is, look at the type of plant that's growing. If it's got big prickles on it, then there's a serious problem there. And that plant is saying, keep away from me, I'm doing a job here and I'm going to stay. And that plant will probably be there for a fair while. Who knows? I don't know how long it might be. We only live for a short period of time, and we want everything to happen in our lifetime. Nature doesn't work that way. Everything takes a whole lot longer. The ecology is going to change. We've changed it. You can't come in with all these hard-hoofed animals, flog the shit out of the joint, plough it, drain it, burn it, and think that you're not going to change the ecology. It's just not going to be that way. You introduce animals, different animals, you're going to introduce the same plants that those animals grew up with. There's nothing you can do about it. You can chase around after them, killing them all you like. You want to get rid of them? Then get rid of the animals. You best look at yourself too, because you better go too. And that's the one way this country will restore itself back to being native, if that's what you want.
Are you having influence with other farmers?
Oh, probably not enough. I think my father, Peter, he's a bit more of a dominant sort of speaker. He probably gets a lot more people turning up. Whether they actually go away and do things, I don't really know. We have people come through our training course. I'm running a course down at Marloo Creek on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We've got 18 people signed up for there. We're supposed to be a maximum of 15, so there's 18 people more, and we're going to be running 4 of those courses over the next 2 years. So our maximum of 15, small numbers of people, but it's something. It's just chipping away at the edges. Everyone's doing this stuff. I mean, you've got people teaching permaculture, so they're teaching people. It's just about changing your mindset. That's the thing. This stuff here, I couldn't teach you all of this stuff in a course. All I can do is teach you bits and pieces, enough to give you encouragement to start doing something. You're going to learn more by getting out and doing it than anything that I can teach you. That's what it's about. You can only learn by doing it. My old man used to tell me that all the time. You gotta go out there, do this, do that. It made no difference until such time as I had to do it. Once I did it, and I watched to see the transformation and the change, then you realise this is how it works, and this is what we need to do.